We are now back in open session. This meeting is being recorded by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 9, and we posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the front page of our website for a listing and application. Everyone mind please standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, as usual, we are now scheduled for citizens' participation. Would anyone like to come up to the mic?
The community prayer first.
Oh, sorry, community prayer. Mr. Ryan.
Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility, and especially we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that have been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek, and keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All right, at 6 o'clock, time for citizens' participation. Would anyone like to come up to address the board? Please come up and state your name and address.
Mary Dormer, 162 Plymouth Street. I was looking at your agenda, and at 6:40, you guys are going to discuss KP Law representing Middleborough, Carver, and the North Carver Water District. For 6 years, I have been coming in front of this board and talking about the importance of clean water. I live in North Carver where there's an issue, where we should be getting water from the North Carver Water District. Bob Belbing is doing a fantastic job trying to get it up and running. Currently, you guys are getting water from Middleborough that is contaminated with PFAS. So you're pumping contaminated water into 139 homes. KP Law should not be representing. I don't care what kind of determination and consent and professional conduct rule that they have decided that they can do it. It is a conflict. The North Carver Water District has hired their own attorney. Respect that. The people of this community voted Bob Belbin in. They elected him. Let him do his job. This is ridiculous. Get it done. For 6 years, we have been waiting for clean water. There is no clean water in North Carver. Get it done, get it clean, and start doing what you need to do for the people of this community. You have failed them.
All right, would anyone else like to come up? Seeing no one approach the mic. All right, 6:05, the agenda item we'll be addressing at a future meeting. Going on to 6:07, the request for an appointment to the Cultural Council for Janet M. O'Connor. Is Janet here? Would you like, please come up to the mic. Obviously, we know your name. Could you give me your address?
My address is 7 Jason Drive, Carver, Massachusetts.
Janet, can you speak right into the mic? Just pull it closer. Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anything you'd like the board to know about your background?
My background. I have lived in Carver for about 42 years. I was an elementary school teacher here in Carver for about 16 years, and then I became the assistant principal at the elementary school as well. I taught grade 6, 4, and multi-age, and enjoyed every minute of it with the Carver students. And then when I retired, I wanted to continue to support the town in any way that I could, and I found out there was openings on the Cultural Council, so I volunteered back then. I think it was 2007 or 2008, and I've been on that board I was on the board for about 6 years, and then the chair retired, and so there really wasn't anyone to take over. So I took over as chair for 2 or 3 years. We had a very low number of participants at that time. Currently, there are 6 participants on the board, and I would make the 7th one. And I'm rejoining so that I can continue to support them. I don't know if you know much about the Cultural Council, but it started when I was teaching. We used to be able to order or get programs for the classes, and the administration usually took care of it at the time. And the Cultural Council was funded by the state lottery, but now it no longer is funded by the state lottery because all of that money goes into the state funds, and then they produce a line item for Cultural Council. And Massachusetts is the only state that does this that we know of. At least that's what I was told. Anyway, I rejoined. I took a year off because I had reached the end of my term, and I've rejoined just to support the council. I'm not going to chair it or do anything above and beyond that, but I just felt that we need to have more participation in the program and get the word out to more people. Communication's very important. They have an opportunity to apply for a grant. They have, people can apply. We have our priorities listed, and people can see what the town needs by what's in the priorities. And we try to select as many of the requests as we possibly can. We usually get about, I think it was $9,000 last year. It might have been a little over that. And so it goes for programs for the library and for the schools if they participate. Old Home Day, Council on Aging, all those programs are all get grant money for programs that they want to have for their groups, for their people. The library uses a lot of it for the summertime, and they're trying to expand it so that there's more for the adults in the winter. And well, that's about all I could say.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll open up to the board. Any questions?
Motion to appoint Janet O'Connor to the Cultural Council.
Second.
A motion second. Any other questions, issues, or concerns?
I just have some. I think I can speak for everybody. We all really appreciate you stepping up to do this, Ms. O'Connor. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 0. Thank you. You're appointed. Thank you for...
Thank you.
Don't forget to get sworn in by the town clerk once you get a letter of your appointment.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
All right, next item on the agenda, is there anyone from Eversource here? Okay.
I'm here, but I'm here for the hearings. Phil was going to speak about the double polls, but I think he emailed you a link.
Okay.
He couldn't make it, so I don't know if you're ready for the hearings now, or we need to wait for the scheduled hearings early.
Right now, discussion, I guess we'll table that for a future meeting.
Well, can I just suggest, Mr. Chairman, are we discussing the double polls?
Yes,
now?
we're moving into the double poll discussion.
So since we've asked multiple times, I think, Eversource to send someone, and once again, we don't have someone, I think we need, at a minimum, as a select board, need to send something strongly worded to Eversource saying, hey, I don't have quite the wording in my head, but it's really disrespectful that we, over and over and over again, we ask someone to be here, and they're not here. And I think last time they sent a public relations representative, and I believe we found out after the fact that some of what he told us was erroneous. And I just think it's really disrespectful to the town and the board that this just doesn't happen.
Issuance?
I also think it's even more disrespectful to install poles without having had a public hearing.
Agree?
Agreed.
And I think they've been told this for years. And I know they're the only game in town, but it seems to me that we need to send them a letter or maybe talk to our town council. I don't know. But that just needs to
It
stop.
just so happens our town council's here. Do you have anything to say?
That's why I
Mr.
looked at him.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. The law is very clear. I think I spoke about this the last time I was here for a poll issue. Under the Massachusetts general laws, once a pole is replaced, it has to be removed within 90 days of the replacement. There's no reason why these poles should not be removed, and there certainly shouldn't be any reason why poles are being put in without going through the proper processes. They can't claim they don't know what those processes are. So, I would be happy to help you write a letter to Eversource, asking them to, comply with their obligations in the town of Carver, and to appear before you to explain why they're not doing it.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good...
Mr. Ryan?
In addition to Eversource, would we need representatives from the other utilities that also use the poles? I think part of what I heard before is that even if the telephone lines get moved or you get the cable lines, it sounds like there's a coordination issue here. So I would think if we're going to bring in Eversource, we probably want to bring in the other utilities that are also
Yeah.
part of the issue.
I agree.
All right, so that addresses the issues we've got with double polls. But Mr. Townsend, just to follow up on the poll hearing issues, was your suggestion to table these next two items until we get a response from Eversource?
Well, I think I was only speaking toward the double poll,
Okay.
so I guess my suggestion is to have the town administrator work with town council to put something together that I think all five of us could sign and get off to Eversource to really demand that they come in and explain it.
And to that end, Mr. Chair, I agree with you. I think we should hold off on the poll hearings until council has sent that letter for us, because this is just another case in point. I don't see what the point of having the hearing right now is. They've already broken the law, I guess, technically, so...
Okay, so Mr. Gainer, do we need to vote on a letter to Eversource, or do you feel comfortable working with town council and putting a letter together on behalf of the board? Okay.
I move
And-
that we ask town council to draft a letter to Eversource on those two issues, not having a representative here who is responsive, underlined, and for installing poles prior to public hearings.
Sounds like a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions, issues, concerns? Mr. Ryan?
So just a question on the poll hearing. Are you saying that all those poles have already been installed?
The ones on Wareham Street have.
So, Mr. Chair, through you respectfully,
Yes. Attorney Coble.
whether or not you decide to open the hearing, I think you should wait to the appointed time to discuss it,
Okay.
because these hearings were
Okay.
noticed for a
That's true.
specific time, and
Okay.
there might be people who are interested in hearing what you have to say.
Right.
All right, so that's 10 more minutes.
Okay, so can we just amend the current motion on the floor just to address the letter
Yes.
to Eversource as far as coming in here and discussing the double polls, and then we can talk about the rest of it once we get to the appointed time?
Yes.
Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with it as long as council will be here when we make that.
But we have a simple vote, we have a simple motion from Sarah to address the double polls with a letter.
Right.
So we have a motion, we have a
And
second. So let's clear that off. All those in favor of that letter, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 0. Okay. So we'll wait until 6:25, or 6:10, I should say, right? Nope, 6:25.
A phone number that I could call them tomorrow and complain that they've just wasted...
Excuse me, could you come up to the mic and give us your name and your address, please?
This is Karen Lapham from Main Street. Is there a phone number that I could call them tomorrow and express how disrespectful it is that I just wasted my time waiting for them too?
We'll address it with full general counsel. You can, as a resident, you can do whatever you'd like. I don't have a number to give you.
That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Thank you. Because it is a waste of everybody's time.
Sure.
Yeah, it is. There's a phone number, I think, on the bills. I don't know if that's any help. Yeah.
Nobody cares about nothing.
Yeah.
And I guess before we move on, I see Mr. Siedendorf and Mr. Woods here. Were they here to discuss double poles, and is there anything they would like to add to the conversation, I guess, while they're here?
Good evening. Just to provide a quick update, on the request of Town Administrator, Mr. Cannon, we actually did, in our department, do a count of double poles in town. There are currently 28 double poles.
What, 20?
28
28
is the
double
number.
poles.
That does not include subdivisions. We did not do subdivisions. That is only main roads. Typically, there aren't as many double pole situations in subdivisions because they usually, it's an occurrence because of a car accident or something of that nature. I'm not saying there aren't any, but typically the main roads are where we have them. So there are currently 28 double poles we counted, and Mr. Cannon has a list of that.
I have that list as well. I was also sent, though, information from a concerned citizen that had a much, much larger number of double poles from, I guess, a report they got from the state online. I'll send that over to you.
Okay.
It must
All
be
right.
the subdivision. What you said, you didn't include subdivisions?
We did not include subdivisions. This is main roads only. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Mr. Townsend.
Mr. Siedendorf, do they, when Eversource or Verizon or anyone comes out to work on those poles, do they coordinate it all through your department, or they just do it on their own?
No, there's no coordination through my department.
All right, thank you.
There should be. That's disrespectful on their part, too.
Sure. Mr. Ryan?
Through the chair, is there, when you looked at the double poles, were they like partially moved over? Did you find like the power had been moved over, but the other utilities were still on there? Or
That's typically the case. What we find is if a pole replacement needs to happen, it's typically that the high voltage Eversource's power has been switched over to the new pole, and what's waiting on the broken pole or the attached pole, the damaged pole, is typically your Verizon, your Comcast, your phone and cable wires.
Okay, so back to the chair. So through my earlier point, it may not always be Eversource because for the double poles, because they can't do anything about it until the utilities. So I think as part of that meeting, we need to get the other utilities here to say, when are you going to get your stuff off of that second pole so they can be removed?
Right, but they are Eversource's poles. So, I mean, ultimately, they're...
I would assume Eversource is the party that coordinates. Am I wrong?
Don't know.
I can't answer that 100%, but my personal suggestion would be yes, get all parties involved because you're going to get some of this going on. So at least if you have everyone in the room, hopefully it can be hashed out.
So the list you just read off, was that something that you were able to get by, having, your team find them?
Yes,
you know,
this
as they
is
go?
personnel from my department riding around.
Okay. Do we ever get citizens calling in saying, hey, I got a double pole outside my house and like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had
And-
citizens.
and they're include-
They're here, too. We've had citizens come in
Yeah.
to our meeting.
And that's included on your list?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, through you. Sorry, Mr. Cobo.
Thank you, through you, just as a point of clarification. The statute that addresses this is Chapter 166, Section 34B, and, I'm sorry, 164, 34B. And it makes very clear, it says, the owner of such pole shall notify all other users of the starting date of such removal and installation work at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of such work, and said owner shall require all other users to remove their wiring and other attachments from the poles in a timely manner. So, yes, there may be other parties who are responsible for this, but ultimately, it's the owner of the pole that has the overarching responsibility to ensure that those other parties act in a timely manner.
I hear you, but I thought I saw the JO meaning joint own poles. So does that mean that now it's like, who really owns it?
Yes, we might have to get into issues like that. And so, I agree that we, to the extent that we know who has utilities on these other poles, we should notify them as well. But ultimately, it is the owner of the pole that is going to be responsible.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chair, if I may, so, Mr. Corbo, so the owner of the pole has how many days to notify the other users?
Well, so it says they have 48 hours prior to the work.
48 hours prior to the work. Do we know whether they do that or not?
I do not know.
So that should probably be part of the letter as well.
because I lost my days for a second there. So all of a sudden, there's a pole that needs to be, it's damaged. And now they come in and they put up a new pole. And I guess either Eversource puts it up, switches their components over, they must then call Verizon and switch their components over. But then did you say there's a 90-day window to take down the old pole?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm sorry, what's the other time frame that Mrs. Stevens just
48
before-
hours.
So when you know, if you're the owner of the pole, and let's say it's damaged in a car accident, and so you know it has to be replaced, 48 hours prior to starting that work, the owner has to provide notice to anybody else who has wires on that pole that that pole is going to be removed, so that those other parties can come in and also switch over their wiring. Then once the work is done, the owner of the pole has 90 days to remove the now unused pole.
Okay. And if for some reason they don't, does this get reported to the state?
Yes, the Department of Public Utilities would have jurisdiction over that.
Okay.
And so they have 90 days to do what, again?
To remove the pole that they're no longer using.
Okay.
One more
Mr. Townsend.
question. Mr. Seaton-Duff, just for you, just so I'm clear, so Eversource has a double pole, they come out, they move whatever wiring they have to move, then they pass it on and call Verizon and say, hey Verizon, you need to come out and move your wires on this pole. They don't communicate that to the town in any way, so.
To my knowledge, no.
They come back later, they look up, they see Verizon hasn't done what they're supposed to do. The town never knows about that, right?
Correct.
Nobody's coordinating with the town.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. All right, 6:21, I think we're close enough to our 6:25 agenda item.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, David.
What's the pleasure of the board with regards to addressing the poll hearings?
Do you have to open the hearing? How do you?
Have to open
Oh,
you have to-
okay.
Can we just wait 2 minutes, please?
Yeah, you have
All
to wait
right.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Anything else we can move up? Not
Wanna do
that
the
quick?
town council, I'm sorry, the town administrator update?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
We can open the poll hearings
We can't till.
and then then
Not
can...
6:25.
Not till
Not till
6:25.
We have to wait.
Oh, right, sorry, never
Town
mind.
administrator
Sorry.
update?
Do you want to start your brief on your town administrator update?
Sure. Dave is here, operates and maintains here. We do have a contract to replace the roof of the town hall and the library. I do want the public to be aware, though, we may have to close off some entrances as they're pulling down the old shingles or working up above. We'll have other entrances open for them, but again, there'll be notification of that on our website, but I just want people to be aware of that. There's also road work going on. I see Mr. Woods here. I don't know if he's going to comment on this, but Rochester Road, Mr. Woods, has been completed today?
It has been completed, yeah.
Completed today, and then Silver Road paving begins tomorrow, correct?
Tomorrow morning, yes.
Yep, so tomorrow morning we'll be paving again. It's on our website. The only other thing I have for that and over at Maintenance is the COA deck bid opening I have is September 12th, 2024, so that will be moving forward. I know that's a project that's been kind of out there for a while.
That is great news, thank you.
You're welcome. We're trying to get that one moving as quickly as possible in before the season here. Well, on the fire department, I still got a couple minutes here. They are out looking for volunteer firemen right now. You see the signs out on 58. They're hiring, we're putting out that advertisement till October 1st of taking applications. I know that information is also on their website, so that's out there. Any volunteer firemen want to step up. And then Brush Breaker 29 is going to be rehabbed. There's a contract out there to rehab Brush Breaker 29. If you remember, I think it was Brush Breaker 28 was rehabbed. Did it start last year or finish last year? I know that.
Finished.
I can't remember if it took more than one fiscal year. But that's happening at the fire station also. The only other thing I could tell you is on the health agent side, Triple E is still a concern out there. I want residents to be careful as they're out. Anytime during the day, they recommend you to actually have the bug spray on anytime during the day or night, but particularly at dusk and dawn, most active times. I do know again, also, Mr. Seedenoff helped me with this, the pickleball contract has been signed and we're waiting for the contract to mobilize. We're hoping for early September. So you might see some groundbreaking out there sometime this month for the pickleball court. I know that's something very interesting. I see the police chief also came in today, and King Richard's Fair got underway this weekend, and as far as I know, the traffic flow went very smoothly. I know the first couple weekends aren't as busy as some of the later weekends, but it's off to a good start. And then today is also primary election day. I hope everybody had a chance to vote. I have 6:25 on my computer.
Perfect timing.
How's that?
All right, 6:25, we're now going to open the poll hearing for Eversource Energy poll hearing for 4 polls on Montello Street with Anchor and Guy, plan number 8630690, dated June 5th, 2024, and to lay and maintain cables, conduits, wires, vaults, and necessary equipment. I guess I would invite Eversource to come up and give us any additional information for this hearing.
First of all, thank you for having me, and I have written notes about the double pole. That's not my realm, but I completely agree with you, and I will pass along as well as tell them to be expecting the letter. So I do want to let you know that that is noted, and I agree with you. So did you want to do these, or are we going to hold them until the letter goes out?
What's the pleasure of the board?
If I may, Mr. Chair, so the poles on Montello Street have not been installed yet, correct?
No, they have not.
Okay, so I would recommend we go forward with
I
that
think so.
hearing. Yeah.
Could I just verify that someone from the town has gone out to make sure that the maps are correct, street names, everything is correct?
We got a letter from Tom Bott.
Okay.
I forget whether he mentioned Montello Street, but he's the one who mentioned that the poles on Wareham Street have been.
Sure, yeah. So staff has checked these maps, and the poll locations are correct.
Okay.
Great. All right, so, Ms. Hewens, do you have a motion?
I move that we approve the installation of 4 poles on Montello Street with Anchor and Guide.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions, issues, or concerns?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that it's plan number 8630690, dated June 5th, 2024. And
So
that
noted.
if that changes, that we should be notified.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 0. All right. So, Mr. Corbo, do I have to wait till 6:35 for the next one?
Sorry.
Town administrator update still?
Any more updates from our town administrator?
I could go the town administrator goals. I know we asked for those to be on, and the opera's on the schedule. I guess under my goals, opera is one of the goals, and we'll go over that. It's an agenda item tonight. I have discussed with the finance director a step-by-step timeline for the budget. That timeline will begin September 17th. I believe I've individually given those to each select board member. The draft schedule that we have for the budget over the fall and early into the winter, finishing January 31st, I believe it is. I can't remember the exact date. It coincides with our last meeting in January. I want to say it's the 22nd. I don't have it right in front of me. I haven't really begun this discussion in depth yet with the succession planning, but I'm going to bring that up at a department head meeting we're going to have tomorrow, just to start talking to the departments about having a second in command, or their plan for it anyways. You know, it's probably a twofold thing. The larger departments, it's probably a little bit easier. Some of them have assistant department heads. So, you know, there is somebody who can step in if they need to, at least on a temporary basis. The smaller departments, again, we'll talk about what could be done and how we could assist them and help them. But again, I haven't really had that discussion yet. And I have started to work on the newsletter. I don't have it completed yet, but we're going to start our first draft of the newsletter and get that out. I could also give you, Mr. Chairman, an update on the North Carver Water District, if you'd
Well,
like.
I'd like to hold that to when we go into the 740 item. Oh, try it again. The
Yeah, this
640.
640.
640, sorry.
Yeah, because we'll go into that, and then that'll probably be a longer discussion.
Okay.
Maybe you could give us an update on the electricity rates, since the town planner can't be here?
I'm not able to do that right now, that'd be something the town planner would need to update.
Maybe we could approve the minutes, the 7:30
Sure.
agenda.
All right,
I'm making a motion to approve the July 9th, 2024 minutes.
second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Any other questions, issues, concerns?
I have to abstain.
Siemens will abstain.
I think I wasn't here.
All those in favor of approving the July 9th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No, one abstention.
4-0, one abstention.
Motion to approve the minutes of August 6th, 2024.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions, issues, or concerns? Hearing none. Mrs. Hewens, you're going to abstain from that as well?
I'm going to abstain, too.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the, do we say the August 6th minutes, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
One abstention.
One abstention.
Did we skip the July
Yeah, I think we
23rd?
Motion to approve the July 23rd, 2024 minutes.
We have a
Second.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other issues, questions, or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving July 23rd minutes, say aye.
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 And one abstention.
Opposed? One exception. 0, one abstention.
How are we doing? Do you want to do the licenses?
Yep. Would we like to approve the
We can
use
go
of
through
town
the approval of the
property?
parks, yeah.
Motion to approve the use of town property, Shirtlift Park, by the Carver Sportsman's Club on September 14th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Anyone from the Sportsman's Club? No. Any other questions, issues, or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? 0. Next item, we have another request to use of town property for Shirtlift Park, Cumberland Farms on September 19th, 2024 at 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Anyone like to make the motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I didn't get a chance to read through every page of this. What is Cumberland Farms doing at Shirtlift Park? Do we know?
On it, it says a yearly leadership meeting
Ah, okay.
with a number of people expected of 85.
That's a long meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have a motion, and do we have a second? We do, right?
I'll make the motion.
Anyone make the motion?
I'll
Second.
make the motion.
You made the motion. All right.
Second.
Motion. Second, Hewens. Any other questions, issues, or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Chair, is that a Saturday?
It's like a Thursday.
A Thursday, okay, never mind.
So, all those in favor, we had aye, opposed, 0, 5-0. All right.
We need 3 more minutes.
6:32, 6:40. Why don't we, I guess we could just go into the, do you want to, I mean, as long as we don't go into it early, we could jump over to the KP Law item, couldn't we?
Or, Mr. Chair, do you want to table the discussion on the electric rates? I know Mr. Bott is not able to attend.
Yes, let's table
Do you wanna
that.
do
Good idea.
Would anyone like to make a motion to table the discussion on electric rates?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any other questions, issues, or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 0. 5-0. I guess I went too fast, I still got 2 minutes.
Yep.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through select board announcements?
Yes, we could. Anyone like to make any select board announcements? I guess I'll start with Mr. Ryan, put you on the spot.
Okay, so the new school year has started, so remind everybody to be careful on the roads with the student transportation and students walking. I wish the students a great year this year. And as mentioned, King Richard's Fair is also in operation. I did have to drive by there a couple times over the weekend, and it was very smooth, so it was sounded like a good start, at least from what I could observe, but just to remind people that that's going to be happening on weekends and plan accordingly. And then also the farmers market is still active, so that's a good take if you can make it on Sundays.
Mr. Townsend?
Thank you. I just want to take a minute to welcome our new Veterans Agent, Nicholas Farina, and just take another minute to thank our former Veterans Agent, Lisa Erickson, for all she did for the veterans in our town while she was here, especially a project that was close to my heart, making Carver a Purple Heart town, which I have been chasing for a long time, and she made that a reality, so I appreciate that. And also, next week is Public Safety Recognition Week here in Carver, so I just want to take a minute to thank all our public safety employees and officials in whatever capacity. We appreciate all they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hewens?
Oh, thank you. First of all, I believe my information is correct. We could still vote until 8 p.m., so I hope everyone has had a chance to go out and vote. It is the primary vote, which, believe it or not, is also very important. And the farmers market, which is every Sunday, is 12 to 4 in Shirtliff Park. And the final thing is, I'd like for people to remember Shane Gives Thanks Food Pantry.
Mr. Hoffman?
I also want to welcome back the students and teachers back to school. It was a quick summer, as usual. Also, month of September is Pediatric Cancer Awareness, and the South Shore Action for Hope that's based in Carver. It has a bunch of fundraisers coming up, cornhole tournament, and a go-go party, so everybody can participate and help that great fundraiser. That's all.
Thank you. Again, just would like to reiterate today's voting day. Please get to the polls before 8 o'clock. I also wanted to things I've heard with regards to this has been a tough year with EEE and mosquitoes, and I think there's been a noticeable difference since the spring, so that was great, getting on that. Did you say, Mr. Gannon, that is there a still like a time frame where we shouldn't be out in the fields still with regards to extracurricular activities?
Yes, we're still restricting activities from after dawn. I mean, after dusk, sorry. After dusk.
After dusk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So still restricting activities.
All right.
And I anticipate that will continue throughout the fall.
Thank you.
Until I want to say till the first hard frost.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, the time is now 6:37. We'll go back to the 6:35 poll hearing. We opened the poll hearing for the Eversource Energy poll hearing for two new polls, 439/7 and 439/8 on Wareham Street with Anchors and Guys, plan number 5893189, dated June 13, 2024, and to lay and maintain cables, conduits, wires, vaults, and necessary equipment.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
to you, do you wish to open the hearing at this point or have a preliminary discussion as to whether the hearing should even be opened based on information that we've received about these particular polls?
okay, that would make sense with all the questions and concerns and issues that we've had. So why don't we go first with an informal discussion?
Would you like me to give a
Yes.
summary? So,
Sure.
This involves an application for two poles on Wareham Street. And as you've seen in the information in your packet, these poles have already been installed. In addition to the fact that these two poles have been installed, we have information to suggest that there are 4 to 6 other poles on Wareham Street that have been installed without having a public hearing before this board. And Wareham Street has been designated as a scenic road, which means that any project, including pole installations that involves the removal or cutting of trees or moving of stone walls, requires a public hearing before the planning board. Information that we have from the town planner indicates that trees were in fact removed, and that these are public shade trees that require a planning board public hearing. And additional information that we received today from the Department of Public Works suggests that these poles are within the buffer zone to a wetland resource area, which then would require either a notice of non-applicability or an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. So there are a number of procedures, right, that have to be followed. And we've said before, I think when the planner was here, that The Select Board does not have jurisdiction over shade trees and scenic roads. You don't have jurisdiction over wetlands, but all of these things have to work together, and you cannot put in a pole unless you comply with the public shade tree law, unless you comply with the Wetlands Protection Act, and then ultimately, unless you get a location permit from the Select Board. So in my opinion, it would be reasonable for this board to say that you're not going to open a public hearing until these other permits and approvals have been obtained, and these other issues, particularly issues concerning why, is it just these 2 poles, or are there in fact 4 to 6 other poles that have been installed, and why aren't we having a hearing on those? But that's up to you. You can also open the hearing, hear an explanation, and, choose to make a decision on the merits as well.
All right, Ms. Hewens?
So, Mr. Corbo, when they have the hearing with the planning board, isn't the tree warden supposed to also be at that public hearing?
Yes, so what the statute says is that on a regular road, it's the tree warden that has the public hearing. If it's a scenic road, it's the planning board, and you combine the 2 hearings of the tree warden and the planning board into one hearing.
That's what I thought. So, and I remember we talked about whether it was in 100 feet of a cranberry bog. I highly recommend that we not even open the hearing until they've gotten their permits from the Conservation Commission and from the planning board / tree warden. I mean, I don't, it's been disrespectful of the whole town, not just us.
I agree.
Agree. And I would anticipate you're not in the position right now to answer all of our questions, am I right?
You're correct. I mean, I could tell you the information on these 2 poles being set, that it's an older job, it's from 2021, and it spanned for 2 different towns, and there was a gas line in Carver, and it had to go back to the planning. And we have procedures at Eversource that we close out each task as it's done. The designer thought that because the job was approved in the other town, it was completed. It wasn't flagged in time, and that's why these 2 poles were installed. I apologize. I'm the face that you're seeing.
It's not your fault.
But still, I'm here. And that was why these 2 poles were in. They thought that we had approval when in fact, because it needed to, and actually they thought it was on private property, and we were going to have to have it surveyed and stuff, and it ended up being in the right of way, and we needed the grant of location. So what I can tell you is that, we would still need the permitting for the rights for these poles. We ask that they stay, but, should you deny it, then we'll have them removed immediately, and then we can open up another hearing.
All right, well, I don't think we're in a position to open up this hearing tonight.
Okay.
And we will be probably communicating to Eversource a resolution to getting the proper permits and everything else they need before they come before us again.
Okay, fair
Mr.
enough.
Chair, before you take a motion through you, can I ask, are these poles being used at this time?
Yes, they're set and have electricity on them, I believe.
Oh, great.
Yes.
That's even worse.
I don't
So I guess-
think,
Seems curious that it would be that easy to remove them.
I guess, to you, Mr. Corbo, what is there any liability for the town having poles up that we never approved actually running electricity through them? I mean, is there any liability
I
for the
would
town?
think so.
In my opinion, that liability would fall with Eversource. They unlawfully installed these
okay.
poles.
Right.
They are not supposed to be using these poles unless and until they have your approval. And, you would have the authority to order them removed. The one question I would have before you did that is that going to in some way exacerbate the wetlands issues that were created when these poles were put in the first place?
Well, Conservation may ask for them to be removed or moved. And I didn't think you could put a pole on private property.
well, we would have to get an easement if we were putting it on private property.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that need some sort of process as well?
Yes, it is a different process.
But they thought it was on private property.
No, we sent it to survey in the meantime, and I think that's when we sent it to survey, they thought that we had already had approval because we had it in the other town, so they closed out the task.
Okay.
on the work order because it spanned for 2 towns.
Okay. Anyway.
All right, well, I think, yep, sorry, Mr. Hoffman.
I have a question. So, one of the comments was if the board, this we're just in preliminary, we're not actually opening the hearing, right? So I can ask questions about this.
Yes.
I want to make sure I'm doing everything correct.
No, yes, no, you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the comments I heard was if the board requested, they could remove the poles. But, and also said that they think electricity is already connected to this.
Yeah.
Honestly, we've talked about this, I've been on the board long enough, this isn't the first time
Yeah.
that we've heard poles going up. You know, is it time we finally say remove the poles and then maybe we'll be taken serious?
Yeah. So
I-
that probably means they should go to conservation, because to remove the poles, if they're within 100 feet of the cranberry bog, they need to go to conservation.
But the hearing that we have is just for 2 poles. Are those 2 poles the ones that are in
Been-
conservations?
Right.
Because I thought there was 2 poles and there's 4 more poles that were already put up. that
But
they
the
weren't even-
2 that are in Carver are within 100 feet of the cranberry bog, is
Okay.
that correct?
At least one is. I think it was the first application involved 4 polls. That hearing is already closed. This one, my understanding, only involves 2.
Right.
And at least one of them is in a wetland resource area, or at least the buffer zone to a
The buffer
wetland
zone.
resource
So
area.
so that's probably where they should start.
So the conservation could tell them.
Tell them to remove the
remove it.
pole,
And
and
we
then
can tell them to remove it as well, correct?
we could, and then to put it, well, once, if we were to give approval for it, ultimately, we could tell them to put the new one outside of the 100 feet of a wetland.
Well, there's a few different things going on. We, through the plan, and when I looked at it, thought he saw 4 more poles that were not approved, correct?
That's not confirmed, but that's
Okay, so we need to confirm
information that we have.
We need to confirm how many poles not approved, is one thing. 2 is, to your point, Mr. Hoffman, I'm not sure if the board should say pull them out if there could be, as Attorney Corbo stated, we could be creating more wetlands issues if we ordered it right now. So it would make sense for the conservation to...
Conservation. And
Look
also
at it
the
first.
trees that have been removed, they need to go to planning before coming back to us as well.
We still have the option when it comes back to us, should we decide to take them out.
Yep.
And Mr. Chair, through you, I guess, I mean, on the one hand, you could say remove the poles, subject to going to conservation first. I guess the other question I would have is if these poles already have electricity running through them and they're removed, then
What happens to the
are there
people?
customers who are being served by that electricity and what happens to them?
Sure. Mr. Townsend?
Mr. Chairman, that, exactly, Mr. Corbo, that's my concern. I believe these poles were to service houses down in that area. So there may be customers right now who are in their homes using that electricity. I mean, I think we all disagree with what Eversource did, and we know this has happened before, but I certainly don't want to be responsible for cutting off someone's electricity who's in there.
But do we know whether those subdivisions have been built?
No, I have no idea. I think we need to find that out.
So.
And one thing I was going to ask, Mr. Chairman, I believe we may have one resident here who came to speak on this. I know we haven't opened the hearing, and I don't know, I would ask Mr. Corbo, since they're here and they came to speak to this item, can we hear what they have to say without opening the hearing?
Yes, and at this point, right, you're trying to decide whether or not you're in a position to open the hearing. And so my opinion, I think if there's a resident here who can add to that determination, then you can hear from them at this point.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear
Sure.
from the resident then.
Do you have any other comments?
Just to let you know that what the poles, installation of the poles was to service 11 single-family homes along Wareham Street.
And
was
they're
what-
occupied now, these 11?
It was 2021 that this job was written, so I'm guessing, I don't know for sure.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to invite a resident up to speak on this issue.
Do you have anything?
Karen?
Karen?
Karen Lapham, Main Street. I really didn't, but I will. It just blows my mind that these things continuously happen. And even if you ask them to take the poles out, They put those poles in and they had no problem moving the line over. I'm not saying I'm an expert or know how to do it, but, well, make them move the line back over where it came from. But it doesn't belong in the wetlands, and they know better, and that's just the bottom line. They know better, and they keep doing it, and they're gonna keep doing it unless you do something about it. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, sorry, Mr. Ryan.
Do we need to notify Conservation and Planning that this is coming at them with some background information as to,
I think we
the
should.
situation? So I think we
Yeah.
need to draft some kind of a letter from the board to those two groups saying that we didn't open the hearing, but they need to,
Yeah.
they need to do their part in looking into this.
And the tree warden.
And the tree warden.
So I
So
can say, I can certainly notify the town planner and then the conservation agent tomorrow.
do we need a motion, or do we just want to?
Tree warden's here.
And the tree warden, yes.
Why don't we make a motion just to make sure that we
We
document?
need a motion, am I wrong? Do we need a motion to reschedule the hearing?
We probably need that too.
We haven't opened the hearing, so I don't know.
No, you do, well, you can.
Okay.
So your options at this point are, you could take a motion to open the hearing and go forward and render a decision. You can just table it indefinitely, and then the burden would be on Eversource to come back and ask that the hearing be opened after they've satisfied your concerns. Or, you can just do nothing, and then the hearing goes away.
My suggestion is that we table this until such time as Eversource has a representative, sends a representative to come in to
I
talk
will
about the double
take that- I'll
poles.
take that as a motion to table. Do we have a
Okay.
second?
I guess I second that.
Right, we have a motion, we have a second. Oh, any other
Discussion.
questions, issues, or concerns, Mr. Ryan?
Well, do we need a motion to notify Conservation, Planning, Tree Warden officially that this, that we had to, or how will they get the word?
Mr.
that-
Cannon's going to
Mr.
let
Cannon
them
will
know.
address it
just
with
an
the
action
town
item.
planner.
Mr. Cannon's going to let them know.
All right.
So,
So my question,
Through you
Sorry.
to the board.
sorry, Attorney Carver. Okay.
You might want to consider putting some sort of deadline on this, because at this point, it's really to their advantage.
Not to come back?
If you do absolutely nothing, to not come back. And so, you may want to say, if they don't come back within
30 days?
a certain amount of time, that you are going to order that the poles be removed.
yeah,
Good
I'd say
point.
30 days, because they have to, Conservation and Planning only meet twice a month, so,
Would you like to amend your motion? Mr.
Yes, I'll amend my motion to, I don't have a calendar in front of me. Let me
30 days.
bring it up here. Mr. Cannon, do you have a suggestion on a date?
There should be a calendar in your drawer.
It should be October 1st would be
Really?
our next meeting. Well, our second meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Weston. So I would, I would make a motion to table it until, unless, and, go.
Mr. Townsend, the problem is, I know that Conservation meets the first and third Wednesdays, and Planning meets the second and fourth Tuesdays. So, and then they have to advertise their public hearings. So maybe we should put it more towards the end of October, just to be sure these two departments have time for their advertisements.
So, through you, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What you might want to think about is having progressive, milestones, right? And so, if by the time your meeting on October 1st comes up, they haven't even started that process,
Okay.
right? That might move you down one path versus
Okay.
if they've already filed their applications, that might move you down another
Mr.
path.
Corbo,
Good idea.
would you have a suggested motion for the board?
Yes.
We've got the motion to table, we're having a problem with the date.
Yes. So if anyone so chooses, the motion could be, I move that we table this public hearing to the October 1st, 2024 meeting and require that Eversource appear at that time and provide evidence that they have started the process for obtaining approvals from the Conservation Commission and Planning Board.
Or
So moved.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
discussion.
Any other questions, issues, or concern, Mr. Ryan?
Do we need to add to that that we would notify, or else those poles will be ordered to be removed. That was the part that didn't get into that motion, because you wanted to be able to say...
Maybe we want to leave that, reserve that
If
action
you
for the...
didn't have it done by the 1st, if there's no evidence by the 1st that the process had been started, then there was going to be an order
But
by
if
the
there's no
board to-
evidence by the 1st when they come before us, we can order right then and there to take them down.
All right. That's fine.
I mean, I would be reluctant to enter into a motion that said we will specifically remove poles until I find out whether there's residents actually using that electricity in their homes right now.
Okay.
So,
All right, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye, opposed, 0, 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Corbo.
All right. Going back to the 6:40 meeting, if I'm correct. This is the approval for determination and consent with KP Law pursuant to Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 1-7, representation of Carver, North Carver Water District, and Middleborough for the drafting of one or more new intermunicipal agreements between the town of Carver, North Carver Water District, and town of Middleborough. Okay. Any Mr. Corbo?
Mr.
Oh,
Chair,
sorry.
before Mr. Corbo starts, we were accused earlier of that this would be a conflict of interest on KP Law's part. Mr. Corbo, you can correct me, but my understanding is the point of our having this discussion that we're going to have will make it not a conflict of interest.
That is correct. So the reason why I'm here and the reason why I'm asking you to do this is for me to explain to you why I do not believe that it is a conflict of interest for me to represent multiple parties in this area, and then for you to decide if you agree with that, and if you do, to give your consent for me to move forward.
Okay.
So with that, and I would add one point of clarification or change in circumstance, the North Carver Water District has chosen not to have KP Law represent them in this matter. They've hired their own separate counsel. So as this moves forward, if it moves forward, I would only be representing the town of Carver and the town of Middleborough. Okay. So
And are they paying for their own lawyer?
that is my understanding, yes.
Okay, so we better not see that bill.
So just so I'm clear, that if Coleman Page, a law firm, is used, but there'll be different lawyers representing each town. Is that a true statement, not a true statement?
No, not necessarily. So the way that we would handle something like this, so we're talking about having an intermunicipal agreement between these three entities whereby Middleborough would provide water and possibly other water-related services through the limits of the town of Carver so that those services can be used by the North Carver Water District, right? So Middleborough needs to be a party to this because they're the seller of the service. Carver needs to be a party to this because the infrastructure and some of the work is happening within the boundaries of the town of Carver. And the North Carver Water District needs to be a party because they're in charge of the infrastructure and in charge of supplying water. So the way that we handle situations like this and the way that we've handled them for you in the past is, I would leave it to you, primarily through Glenn and the town manager in Middleborough and whoever wants to in the North Carver Water District to come to an agreement on the business terms. Is Middleborough going to sell water? If so, how much water are they going to sell? What are the rates going to be? What other services are they going to provide? I then take that information and put it into the form of an agreement. These are the legal aspect of these agreements, is something where, I would want to make sure that it's of equal benefit to both municipalities, and that's what I do. I represent municipalities, and we've drafted hundreds, if not thousands, of these agreements in this exact way. And in fact, a year or two ago, right, I drafted a similar agreement regarding the installation of the meter pit, and there didn't seem to be any issues with it at that point. So, My opinion is that if you're in charge of negotiating the business terms, there's no conflict of interest for me, because I don't have to choose one side over the other. You know, I don't have to negotiate, you know, with you to get a lower rate or with Middleborough to get a higher rate. You guys will negotiate that, and then I will just put it in a structure that is in the best interests of all the parties. And so for that reason, it is my opinion that there is no conflict between Carver and Middleborough. And in fact, I think it would benefit you by having one council who can do all of this.
Mr. Townsend?
Chairman, so just a couple of questions, just so I'm clear on this. So we're not approving anything tonight. We're just authorizing you to draft an agreement that will come back to the board, and the board will review it?
That's correct.
And so what happens if we agree and the North Carver Water District doesn't agree? Is that, are you not authorized to draft that agreement?
Well, so I would be authorized to draft that agreement on behalf of Carver and Middleborough. North Carver Water District has their own attorney who can, you know, inform them about the terms of that agreement and can propose changes. But it is a three-party agreement. And if any one of those parties, you know, does not wish to enter into it, then there is no agreement.
Okay, but again, all we're authorizing tonight is for KP Law to draft an agreement that will be brought back to the select board and other parties for approval. We're not approving anything tonight, we're just
That is
authorizing you
correct.
to draft
So
the
once
agreement.
the terms of that agreement are negotiated, then yes, it would come back to you, and you would decide whether or not you wish to sign that agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
So, can you just clarify, so the agreement, Middleborough is going to, wants to sell water to the town of Carver, or they want to supply water to Carver. So I don't understand where the town gets involved. Isn't everything done through the North Carver Water District?
Because it's located in the
I'm
town.
asking Mr.
So the reason why I would recommend that Carver be a part of this is, you know, there might be, another aspect of this is that Middleborough might be performing, you know, maintenance and repair services. And some of those maintenance and repair services might involve doing work in Carver public ways, right? Because this infrastructure is within your jurisdiction. And so my opinion is, and maybe once we get to the point of having an agreement, you might look at it and say, this doesn't really involve us. But at least you've had a seat at the table and you're able to make that decision. Or you can say, well, you know, these pipes are in our roads. They may need to open those roads. We want to have a say in, you know, how that happens and when that happens.
So I guess my other question, the rate obviously gets involved in this negotiation as well. So that's more with the North Carver Water District attorney, and then that would be you representing Middleborough. The town really doesn't get involved in that at all, correct?
That's correct. I mean, you know, again, to the extent that you want to have Glenn representing your interests, and you know, he can do that. But yes, the determination of what is the rate, what is the scope of services is primarily for the North Carver Water District to decide.
But you said that we would be involved in the discussion of the rate. I mean, they are our Carver residents, right?
Yes.
So
And
we're not involved in that rate discussion at all?
well, again, I think you could be. I mean, ultimately, you know, you do have some position here because, you know, even though the North Carver Water District is its own entity and it has an enterprise fund, right? Town meeting routinely contributes money to that enterprise fund, and these are residents of the town of Carver that you would have an interest in looking over. And so, you know, again, I think having Carver have a seat at the table is an important thing for you to be able to have.
Any questions? Mr. Ryan?
I guess my concern as I listen and think through this is that we may want to meet with the North Carver Water District just to see if we're on the same page before we do anything, because if we go through all this trouble and spend money and then they don't agree to any of this, then we're kind of from what I feel, stuck. We wouldn't be able to move forward if we don't have everybody, in alignment with this. So it's feeling to me that we might want to at least hash out some of the details with the North Carver Water District before we, and the attorneys that they've hired, before we start to go down the path of spending money on an agreement.
I think
Mr. Hoffman?
one of their comments or actions is to hire a new attorney, which they've done. I guess they've done already. So it's more of our, if we do take on Kaufman and Page, then it's North Carver Water District has their own attorney, and then Middleborough and Carver would have their own. But again, the whole thing that I'm just a little bit confused on is the whole, most of this would be the rate, correct? Most of this negotiation is actually the rate of getting water from Middleborough to supply to the North Carver Water District, who will then supply it to the town of Carver. I understand if there's, roadway incidents or things need to be there, but the gist of this agreement, probably the bulk of this would be concerning the rate, is that correct?
Well, so at this point, Middleborough is providing water to the North Carver Water District under an emergency connection, and there is already a rate negotiated for that. My understanding is that there is an issue on the table as to whether Middleborough would not only sell the water, but would also provide operation services to the portion of the system that is in Carver. So that would include, things like, reading meters and performing system maintenance, issuing reports, water testing. And so that would be an expanded role that would have to be, not only would a rate for that role need to be negotiated, but also what the scope of services is for that role, should Middleborough even choose to want to accept it.
Now, does North Carver Water District have jurisdiction over that second part that you said, the upkeep in that?
Yes, they do.
So the town doesn't have any?
That's correct.
Okay.
Again, other than, as Ms. Hewens pointed out, that you have an interest in seeing that your residents are supported, and if Middleborough is going to be doing work in Carver, even though it's technically North Carver Water District, my recommendation would be that you be a party to that agreement so that your interests in, the physical part of this is protected.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make clear, though, we're not agreeing to an agreement tonight, correct? We're just agreeing to allow you to be our attorney on this, knowing that you'll be Middleborough's attorney as well.
Well, that's correct. And so, I'm town council to Carver, I'm town council to Middleborough, and so I owe both of you, a duty to disclose this and to get your consent. And even if you did not want to participate in this process, I would still ask that you consent to me representing Middleborough, because again, I don't think that there's a conflict here. You may decide this has nothing to do with us and we don't want to be involved, but that doesn't make it a conflict of interest from my perspective that would prevent me from working for Middleborough on the same matter.
Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of questions through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Corbo and Mr. Cannon. I'm not sure, quite frankly, where the question should go. Right now, we have residents in North Carver who are on Middleborough water. They need to stay on that Middleborough water for the foreseeable future because the North Carver Water District is unable to provide them water at the current time. So we're under the emergency order with Middleborough. In order for Middleborough to continue to provide water to North Carver, do we need a new intermunicipal agreement? Do we have to have one?
I don't think so at this point. I mean, if it's only them supplying water, you have an agreement that I do not believe has an expiration date on it. And it is my understanding that they have no intention of stopping the supply of water.
So what is the purpose of doing the new agreement? We've already authorized you to represent us with the meter pit. What is the purpose of us doing this new intermunicipal agreement in the first place?
So my understanding is that the purpose of this new agreement is to sort of more formalize the supply of water to be something other than just emergencies, and further to explore the possibility of expanding to this system operator phase.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. So I guess my thoughts on this, based on those answers, is I think we owe a duty to the people in North Carver to give them as many options as they can on their water. And by us doing this agreement, that's what that does. It gives us we're not even approving an agreement. We're just authorizing Mr. Corwota to draft an agreement for us to do. I think that's something we need to do. And, you know, if the board felt it was necessary, I mean, we could always schedule a joint meeting with the North Carver Water District when it came time to approve the agreement, if that was, the board felt that was necessary. But I don't see, seems to me it's our due diligence to move forward.
Mr. Ryan?
Keep this going.
I guess my question, if they've hired counsel, are they working on a similar agreement? Is there a duplicate effort here where we would have our, KP Law plus, their attorney both doing the same thing? I'm trying to understand the separation between what their attorney that they've hired is going to be doing in this relationship and what we would be doing. Where's the differences? Where's the similarities?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair. So it could be that they have their attorney drafting an agreement, in which case I would not also draft an agreement. I would rather review their draft and then advise you and advise Middleborough as to whether or not that draft is in your best interest or whether I would recommend changes to that draft.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to one thing that Mr. Towns was alluding to. So in the North Carver Water District, there's really two things I want to make sure we're clear on. DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, has stated that they need to have the North Carver Water District needs to have a distribution system operator, which is different than the plant operator, because the plant is not pumping any water right now. They're not concerned with having a plant operator. At some time in the future, we'll get to that, but right now it's the distribution system operator. And that's just in case a pipe breaks, something goes wrong with the system. I know Middleborough right now is doing testing. I can tell you right now, Middleborough has stepped up to the plate. They're doing testing for us. Not only is the North Carver Water District not pumping any water, we have broken meters on our customers. We couldn't read their meters. Middleborough has stepped in and fixed some of these meters so things are being done properly. So they're looking to formalize that agreement with Middleborough to take over as our distribution system operator. Those discussions, have to be formalized. I can tell you, Middleborough is doing it right now to our benefit, I would say. And something that we should formalize. I would encourage you to consent to this. And the way I look at it is, Middleborough is supplying the water. The water's going into North Carver Water District pipes. They own the pipes, but the land is ours. It's the town of Carver. And again, particularly if they are digging up a roadway, how we go with the traffic management, our detail officers responding to that, how they're patching the roadway, all those little details that, again, I think we should be involved with.
Yep.
But I just want to be clear about where we're asking Middleborough to do in the future. And that is a future consideration that has to be worked out.
I had a few questions. One is still trying to get who is representing who and to what effect. I get the fact that, as Mr. Gannon said, it's Carver, we're the town of Carver, we have to provide access to our roads. So I've seen some of these agreements in the past more like easements, you got to let somebody on your property to fix pipes and things like that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Typically, I've seen some of these agreements where they're more like easement rights, allowing Middleborough to go on a Carver land and make corrections and changes and things like that. I guess my question is, let's just say, and the North Carver Water District, if you want a separation of duties, they have their own representation, right? So really, they have their own attorney. So you do have that split. I guess my question would be, let's just say the rate. Middleborough wants to charge a rate, and Carver's going to accept that rate. And we don't like that rate. We being the town of Carver. Do we have any authority to say that rate's not good enough, or it should be higher or lower? Or is that more a determination between North Carver and Middleborough?
I would want to explore that in a little more detail when the time came. I don't really want to get into that sort of level of specificity at this time because we haven't even gotten to that yet.
I'm just trying to get at what's our role? Do we have a skin in the game other than, yeah, we do, it's our town, But what effectively could we agree with or deny within that particular agreement? I'm not going to ask for those individual items, but that's what I'm trying to look at. It really seems to be a discussion between North Carver Water District that has their own attorney and Middleborough, with us, to steal a term, as having skin in the game because it's on Carver land.
And yes, and I agree with that. I mean, I think that, you are not the primary role players here. But, again, if we could just sort of focus this conversation, in order for me to represent Middleborough, I would need your consent. And in order for me to represent you, I would need Middleborough's consent. So that's all I'm really looking for at this point. That's not necessarily to say that now I'm going to go out and I have a blank check to write all kinds of agreements that you don't want or that you don't have an interest in. It's just merely saying that if this work needs to be done and to the extent it can be done, you authorize me to represent you and Middleborough, or even just Middleborough.
Please. All right, any other questions from the board? Mr. Ryan?
So I guess I'm still unclear until we talk to the North Carver Water District about, would KP Law review the agreement that they've put together and give us, input into that? Or are we drafting the agreement and they would review it? So there's still a few unknowns here.
I think it sounds like we're going to find out if they have an agreement.
Well, let's look at it this way. We're the North Carver Water District, or not. The North Carver Water District is in Carver, but it's not like we have 4 towns looking to sell us water. Okay? There's only one game in town, which is Middleborough. So I don't, isn't it more like Middleborough will provide an agreement to the town of Carver, right? They're providing water, and then North Carver Water District will turn around and say, I would like to make these changes. Could it be the North Carver gives them the agreement and says, now Middleborough's go make changes when they're doing us the service? Or how would that typically work?
And I mean, that's sort of one of those things that I wouldn't get involved in, right? That would be up to you guys to decide that, hey, Middleborough's selling the water, they should be drafting the agreement, in which case then I would draft the agreement for Middleborough. Or you might say, North Carver Water District is the one that benefits this, let them pay to draft the agreement and have our attorneys just review it, because that's less work. So, I would defer to you for you to negotiate that with the North Carver Water District, and then come back to me and say, okay, Greg, we decided North Carver Water District's attorney is going to draft something for your review and edit, or vice versa. So again, it's just because you're giving me this permission doesn't necessarily mean we've defined the scope of my work. That's still going to be something that is up to the principals. You, on behalf of the town of Carver, the select board of the town of Middleborough, and the district commissioners for North Carver Water District.
All right, Mr. Townsend, any more? Mr. Townsend.
I just have, all we're doing here is authorizing KP to draft an agreement. We're not approving an agreement.
Right.
Yep.
All we're doing is authorizing the draft agreement. They may bring that agreement back. The North Carver Water District may look at it. They may say, we hate this agreement, we don't want it, and they may throw it out. My only concern in this whole thing, we haven't seen the agreement yet. He may bring it back and we may disagree with it. My only concern here is making sure that the residents in North Carver have clean water when they turn their faucets on. That's all I want. And if this agreement will help keep that going or move it forward, then I think we should authorize KP to draft the agreement. Again, it's just a draft.
Please, one more time, I'm going to ask you to leave. All right, then why don't you leave if you can't? Just listen.
I'm trying.
All right.
That's it.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Carter.
Mr. Hughes.
You're finished, right? Okay. So my understanding is that all we're doing is approving your working for both the town of Carver and the town of Middleborough, and that if it turns out you don't need to draft the agreement, that you just need to review the one of North Carver Water District or Middleborough has come up with their own agreement, and you need to edit it, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We're just agreeing with the fact, there must be a legal term for that, just the fact of you're working with both towns.
Correct. You know, I mean, I've been your attorney for a very long time. I'm not going to charge you for something I didn't do or am not going to do. It is really just the authorization to do the work as it comes up, whatever the scope of that work you decide it should be.
So if we decided that you present this agreement and we're not happy with it, we have the right to get separate counsel at that time, are we not?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, you're not married to it. And again, like I said, you know, my hope is that, you know, the parties themselves would come to terms on the substance of it, and that all I, you know, would be doing, or the other attorney would be doing, is sort of adding the legalese to make sure that everybody's rights are protected.
Okay. Mr. Ryan?
I was going to say, could we plan to meet with the North Carver Water District or have a subcommittee that meets with them? How would we go about? I just want to make sure we're in alignment with what they're doing before we make a decision, because it seems like there's three parties involved here. We haven't listened to what, you know, what they're trying to accomplish here, and I would want to listen at least and make sure we're all on the same page here and not going in different directions.
Maybe that should be part of the motion, that we're agreeing to let KP Law be our counsel for this issue, and also Middleborough's, with the presumption that if there's already an agreement written with the, you know, we're going to meet with the North Carver Water. If there's an already agreement written, he just told us he's not going to be writing a new one for us. So he'll be doing the work. Presumably, he'll be talking to their lawyer as well. And if they have their own agreement, then he'll be looking at it for us. I think that's all we're agreeing to, right?
Is there an urgency to making the decision tonight without talking to the North Carver Water District? Or have we already talked to them? Do we already have their input?
I think Middleborough wants this codified, don't they?
I was going to say, we don't have the input from the North Carver Water District, but I would say there is pressure to get this done. DEP is looking for the North Carver Water District to have that distribution system operator. Again, there's, by statute, they're supposed to have a system operator for the distribution system. So there is certainly pressure there. I know there's been discussions of fines for the North Carver Water District if they don't have a distribution system operator.
And through you, Mr. Chair, what I could say is that, you know, until I get your approval on this, as well as the approval of the Middleborough Select Board, I couldn't represent Middleborough on this either. And so, you know, I'm not going to speak for Middleborough as to what they would do, but it's not likely that they would move forward with an agreement without having counsel to be able to look at it.
Got it.
So,
Ms. Hoffman?
So I guess I'm a little confused. So what we're voting on is to approve KP Law to draft one or more new intermunicipal agreements, correct?
between
Carver, North Carver Water District, and the town of Middleborough. So that by doing that, we then give you authorization to represent the town of Carver. Because the thing that had me confused was you still have to go to Middleborough, to their selectmen to approve, to have them approve you.
So because you are both my clients,
Yep.
you both have to approve of me representing the other. So in effect, what you're doing is saying that you as town council for Carver can also represent Middleborough. And then the Middleborough Select Board is going to say you as town council for Middleborough can also represent Carver. And at this point, that's all I'm asking. And then we can go through all of those other issues before the pen ever hits the paper on an actual.
So I guess that's what has me confused.
Yeah.
So this motion, or what we're looking for, is the drafting of one or more. We're not really approving that. We're just approving, yes, you can represent the town of Carver.
Correct.
I think what has me confused is the drafting of one or more new agreements. So technically, right?
Yeah,
Unless
so-
I'm reading it wrong.
And so would it be more comfortable if you had said, you know, if we had added just representation with respect to one or more intermunicipal agreements?
again, I do not know what the board thinks, but that was kind of my confusion, where originally we were talking about, yes, we give you approval to
draft versus
draft it,
represent.
but now it's like, we're not even drafting anything because the North Carver Water District may have, their attorney may have something.
Well, that's my confusion as to who's actually drafting it, and I know there's urgency here, as you were mentioning, but if the North Carver Water District is already drafting this, then I don't see the urgency, because if they're doing it, it's just going to be a review of what they've done on our side.
Well,
But even if, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So our chair, our council will find out if they're drafting that. As he told us earlier, he's not going to start drafting something if he finds out that someone else has already started drafting one.
All right,
But
so
he
then-
can't do that with our consent tonight to let him be our lawyer.
So to Mr. Hoffman's point, you should not make a motion for a draft. It should be just simple to represent the town of Carver in the,
Right.
creation of an intermunicipal
Yeah,
agreement.
so if we took out for the drafting of, and we replaced it with representation with respect to one or more intermunicipal agreements, would that satisfy everyone's concerns?
Yes.
I'm good with it. How you feel, Mr. Ryan?
I still would like to talk to the North Carver Water District, but I think representation, we can say as long as there's going to be no action until we've talked to the North Carver Water District. And then, of course, we could always revisit, whatever we learned from their input.
And I think in reference to it, Mr. Ryan, what you're saying, I feel more comfortable now knowing that North Carver Water District has their own attorney, because that's been they voted on that, and that's been their wish. So it's not, because I know I've got a lot of people with the conflict of interest and just it's not fair and this and that now that they do have their own attorney, that they're not being forced to do anything that they don't want to.
Because it's not like a majority rules. If there was an issue and the town of Carver said yes and Middleborough said yes, it doesn't happen, because North Carver could still say no. They're independent, they got their own attorneys, they got their own.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve KP Law's representation of the town of Carver, North Carver Water District, and the town of Middleborough for entering into, for one or more new intermunicipal agreements between the town of Carver, North Carver Water District, and the town of Middleborough.
Could I just have a clarification on the wording? I think Mr. Corbo had a little bit different wording on that.
Okay, let's hear that again.
If you'd like, Mr. Chair, and we're going to take North Carver Water District out of it, because
Okay.
I'm not representing them at all.
Okay.
So the motion,
Okay.
if someone were so inclined, would be to approve and consent of KP Law pursuant to Mass Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 1.7, for representation of Carver and Middleborough with respect to one or more intermunicipal agreements between Carver and Middleborough for the provision of water to the North Carver Water District.
Okay, I move that we approve the determination and consent of KP Law pursuant to Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 17, for,
That's 1.7, sorry.
sorry, 1.7, thank you, for,
Representation of Carver
and the town of Middleborough. Mhm.
with respect to one or more
New intermunicipal agreements between the town of Carver and the town of Middleborough
Yeah. With respect to,
with respect to supplying water to the North Carver Water District
correct, and related services.
and related services.
Okay,
That, Elaine?
so we have a amended motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Amended motion, we have a second. Any other questions, issues, or concerns?
I have a question. I'm just thinking about this. So, as a town, is it better for us to have the same attorney that the North Carver Water District has? Or will it create issues, not, as far as Mr. Ryan said, not being all on the same page?
That was my concern originally.
I think it's better for us to have the same attorney as the town of Middleborough has. Because, I mean, we didn't ask the North Carver Water District to get their own attorney.
Right, but I'm just saying, do we want to be on the same page as the North Carver Water District, who's part of Carver?
It's not, it's actually not part of Carver, it's an
Right.
intermunicipal
It's
agency.
located on,
It's located in Carver.
yeah. I'm just kind of thinking of that, it's,
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but, you know, we didn't ask them to get their own counsel, and we are a municipality. The North Carver Water District is not.
right, what I'm saying is they have acquired their own attorney, and is it more advantageous to us? Because I agree with Dan that we have to be on the same page. That we don't want to have this become a battle. We're all looking for the same thing, like Mr. Townsend said, we all want the residents to get clean water, and we want them to continue to get water, and, you know, hopefully Middleborough, you know, going to keep up the great job they're doing now, but it's,
Well,
by
again,
having three
yeah.
different entities, it's kind of,
But let me ask this, if we go with the North Carver Water District's attorney, and now there's some negotiations, and there's a disagreement between the Select Board and the Water Commissioners, is it the Water Commissioners that will make the final decision?
Then what do we do?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't hear all of that.
If the town of Carver decided that we were going to combine with the North Carver Water District using their attorney, whoever that is, okay? And internally, we're having meetings, and we don't agree with each other on regards to something. The board that votes to make the final decision is the North Carver Water District vote?
Depends on the agreement, I
Yeah,
guess.
that would be up to you to negotiate with them and their attorney. And, you know, if you wanted their attorney to represent you and the North Carver Water District, you'd have to have this same discussion with them. You
That's
know,
right.
they're subject to the same rules that I am. And, you know, if that's the direction you want to go, you know, I would just then ask that you authorize me to represent Middleborough, so that this process can start, so that this process can be moved forward. Because otherwise, you know, Middleborough, I would not be able to represent them. They would have to go and get separate counsel, which they may choose not to do.
So, if I may, Mr. Chair, so I think that to address this issue of the fact that we don't want to be antagonistic towards the North Carver Water District, and I agree, I think that it won't come to that because we will see whichever draft of an agreement, before we sign it, we're going to see it as a draft agreement. And whether it's been drafted by their lawyer or our lawyer, we're going to see it first. We're not agreeing to an agreement tonight. We're just agreeing to allow KP Law to represent us and Middleborough. And it seems to me the two municipalities should have the same lawyer because we have a common interest.
All right, Mr. Ryan, last question, let's wrap this up, or we're going to go to a vote.
I think with respect to the agreement, the drafting, and the approvals of that, that's where I am fuzzy also, because, you know, can the North Carver Water District just enter into an agreement on their own, you know, in behalf of the town, independent of the Select Board? Or is there going to be some, you know, depending on the language of what's in there, is there going to be something which they can't act on and enter into a contract, you know, and we have to, you know, as a board, be involved?
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, they're on our town meeting warrant every year. So we're still paying some of their bills. I think we have an interest in having our own representation.
Okay, I mean, yes, with that, but I don't know how the authority is written under the North Carver Water District for them to enter agreements or not enter agreements. I guess I'd have to understand more about what's within their, you know, authority to do, independent or.
Well, I don't either. I just know that they're not the municipality called the town of Carver. We are. But we do still pay some of their bills. And these residents are Carver residents, and the businesses are Carver businesses. I think we should at least have a seat at the table. I think it would be a mistake not to have the representation that we have.
All right, so we've got an amended motion, and again, just to reiterate, this comes down to representation. Should an agreement ever be put in front of us, we being the board can, first of all, whenever, we should be discussing the plan with the North Carver Water District, yes. Should an agreement come down, we'll get together with the North Carver Water District to go through it together as a team. But right now, all we're saying tonight is, let's get to the point where there's agreement. Should we not like the agreement, we could turn around and get another attorney to represent us. We can change anything we want in the future, correct?
Well, yes, and also, I mean, if, just like in any other matter, if I were to draft an agreement and you don't like parts of it, we would talk about it and, change it.
No, I agree.
I always want to work with you guys,
Sure.
not say, hand something to you and say, this is it. So, you're always going to have the ultimate decision to make here.
Got it.
I have just a real quick question, sorry. I know you want
Mr.
to wrap
Huff.
this up. Could we just vote on allowing KP Law to represent Middleborough tonight, and then decide on this, if we want them?
What are we, I'm confused, what are we waiting to decide?
As far as representing the town of Carver?
But we don't even know who their attorney is. Why would we switch attorneys in
No,
I'm not saying,
go ahead, sorry.
midstream?
and I'm not saying to switch attorneys, but there's just a lot of confusion, I think. Because when I'm coming in tonight, I thought that KP Law was asking to represent the three entities, Town of Carver, North Carver Water District, and Middleborough. I wasn't 100% comfortable with that because I wanted to hear what North Carver Water District had to say. So now I know that they have their own. But Mr. Corwood asked as well for one of the things he'd like to get tonight, so they move with Middleborough, is to get approval from us that they can represent Middleborough, which I have no problem
Right,
with that
but
at all.
Middleborough will want, regardless, we still share the same attorney. So Middleborough would want that conflict of interest question dismissed, and we could dismiss that by this vote. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. I mean, to Mr. Hoffman's point, you can take the town of Carver out of it and only authorize me to represent Middleborough, if that's what you choose to do. So
But should we sit down with the North Carver Water District and go through with their attorney, their options, and we decide that, we kind of feel, as Mr. Hewin said back in the beginning, that, well, we would feel more comfortable with Coleman Page. It doesn't preclude us from coming back and saying, we want our own representation, and it's Coleman Page.
That's correct.
Somebody else. All right. So we're not locked into anything.
So, I'm sorry, so what is the motion?
The original motion still.
Original motion stands, and that is that Middleborough will represent Carver with respect to one or more new intermunicipal agreements. Not drafting it, just representing us.
Right. And KP Law can represent both the town of Carver and the town
That's
of...
the motion right
That's the
now.
motion on the table.
Correct. So moved.
Did we
All
get a
right.
second on the motion?
We've got a motion, and do we have a second? We have a second. All right, let's just wrap this up. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Two, okay.
3-2?
3-2, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll revise that consent form, and I'll send it to Glenn so that
Okay.
you guys can sign.
But before you go anywhere, can we kind of, not that I, going back to Glenn's update, just taking this a little bit out of order, sorry, the North Carver Water District update? Well,
The
while he's
only other
here.
thing I have to add is the North Carver Water District, they are working on hiring a professional engineer to do an evaluation of the facility. So I think we handled everything else, we know the hired new council now, they're looking at Middleborough to be their distribution system operator, or bringing in somebody else to be a distribution system operator. But they're also working to bring in a professional engineer to look at the facility itself, to see if at some point in the future, or what it would cost, to actually start pumping water again. Clean water.
Mr. Hewins.
May I, through you, Mr. Chair, may I ask if we're paying the bill for the engineer?
No, it is coming out of the North Carver Water District budget, but like you say, you do subsidize some of their budget from the
Yeah.
town.
Okay. Sorry.
That's
Anything
it.
else?
That's all.
right. I had one question because it was brought up earlier tonight, and if no one feels comfortable answering this question, then we'll just ask Middleborough. There was a comment that PFAS is in the water that Middleborough is now giving Carver residents, and I've been told by multiple times that if there is a hit of PFAS in any well, it gets shut down automatically, so it does not go to any of our residents. Does anyone make a comment on that?
Yes, Middleborough, we were told that the, I'm forgetting his name.
Mike Bumpus?
Yes, thank you. Mike Bumpus, they did shut down the East Grove Street well for that reason. I think it was East Grove Street. Yeah, he's a professional. He's been doing that for years. He would shut down any well that had PFAS in it.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, through you, I don't know the specifics of it, but you should bear in mind that those Middleborough residents have the same water
That's correct.
provided to them. So it's not as if Middleborough would choose to send PFAS water to North Carver and clean water to their residents.
Right.
It's all coming from the same sources.
Correct.
All right.
Before we move on from the town administrator update, I have a question on something the town administrator brought up previously
Sure.
in his update, but I don't want to hold up Mr. Corvo, so are we,
I think we're all set, Mr. Corvo.
doesn't involve Mr. Corvo, so I hate to hold it.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night, everyone. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Cannon, previously you mentioned the pickleball court?
Yes.
On the update in the pickleball court. Could we, at a future meeting, get an update on the whole complex down there? I remember there was a previous conversation with the previous town administrator about the complex and taking into account the COA, the pickleball court, the conservation area next door, and I think the plan was over there to put in some nature trails or something where people could park, and there was going to be some type of plan for the whole area, and I've never seen any plan, but I think it would be good for this board to have a conversation about the whole thing, just the whole area down there, as rather than just the pickleball court or just this or just that, but the whole area. That's something
If I could,
I'd like-
Mr. Chair, I did have a conversation with the chairman of the Recreation Committee. She did inform me that there was a feasibility study done, I want to say in 2020.
Yep.
I haven't had a chance to look at that yet, particularly, I'll tell you, I'm concerned with the parking there. Pickleball is very popular. So I want to dig into that to see if there is a feasibility study for the entire area that took this into consideration, what details there are in there. If there isn't something like that, I'd probably recommend that we go to somewhat of a master plan to kind of plan this out, because there is a lot of activity in a small area right here. So it is a concern.
Well, that was going to be my suggestion, and I see Mr. Siedenhoff here, and I don't know how much, but I just think we need to get someone involved with a plan for the whole area, where the parking is going to be, and COA and everything else, and just make sure it's adequate.
Yeah, so if I may, so Fuss and O'Neill, our town engineers, did do a plan in, I think it was 2020. I don't know whether it also involved conservation land, because that's really their jurisdiction, but I know it involved all the parking, and I don't remember there being an issue, but that would be something we should probably see.
Yeah, I only bring it up because with the addition of pickleball, I know that people have expressed concerns to me before about where, people come down in the morning to play pickleball, then some of the older folks show up at 11:15, 11 o'clock for lunch, but now maybe there aren't many parking spaces left because they're
Well,
taken for
I
pickleball.
think they're going to create more parking spaces.
I believe they are going to
Yeah.
create more.
Well,
But I just wanted to look at
I'm
it.
sure all that's, but I would just like to see a plan. That's all. I'm sure there must be a plan somewhere, and
Yeah.
I'd like to see a plan. So that's all.
Yeah, that would be great to add to one of our next agenda items, just to see what is it going to be, and do we have the appropriate area, and not to add more to it, but I went to a pickleball tournament once, and did we do any sound studies? Because it's loud. So.
Yes. There are complaints about that, I can tell you there are. I know
Okay.
there are.
All right. Let's see. Next only item left we get is ARPA. First, we've got additional ARPA requests. I'll turn that over to Ms. Hewens. Ms. Weston?
Ms. Weston, you need to speak into the microphone.
Our chief of police has the ARPA requests. He'll come up and present them.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me. So I was asked we've all been asked to come up with additional ways to spend down some of the ARPA money, and I have a couple of proposals. Before we start, the proposal had been discussed with Mr. Cannon and Ms. Praval, so whether the money's there or not is not up to me. I'm just offering these as ideas on what to spend the money on. My first one, and before I start, I'm going to go back a little bit historically. So currently, the Carver Police Department has 18 police officers. In this fiscal budget, when we did the planning last year, we added the 19th officer. Based on budget problems last year, we took out half a year's salary on that to make the budget work, and we'll be hiring a new police officer starting January 1st. We also have a police officer who served for several years with us who's retiring in November. So we have 2 openings for police officers coming up this fall. We've begun that process. We're working on trying to find fully trained police officers to save ourselves the money of the academy and the 6 to 9 months that takes. We've begun that process and we're moving forward. When we hire a police officer, or when we bring a new person on as a lateral transfer, there's a period of time called field training. That's when they're working with our current officers out on the street, but they're not part of manning. They're learning the processes that we use and the town of Carver and all those other matters on how we do things in the town of Carver. That time varies depending on the level of experience they have and could be from a minimum of 7 weeks to a maximum of 13 weeks. That period of time, we're paying that police officer to ride around with other officers and learn the town and learn our procedures and be ready to be signed off to work alone in the town of Carver. When we hire a new police officer to replace somebody who's retiring, we've always waited until that person retired, and then we can use the remainder of their salary that's in the fiscal year to pay for them for that fiscal year. So we would be, in effect, waiting till November 2nd when Officer Silva retires, or January 1st when the new position is funded for half a year. It's my thought that if we can get that process moving quicker, we will be able to save some overtime, because when Officer Silva retires, there'll be a gap of at least 7 weeks or 13 weeks, depending on which officer we are able to hire, while we train that officer. The same thing with the January 1st officer. If we wait till January 1st to hire him, then we will have a period of 7 to 13 weeks before that officer is ready to go. So making use of money, that one-time money that's out there, this revenue replacement, I think it's called, I believe if we could backdate those hires, we could get that training out of the way and have these officers ready to go on the appropriate dates instead of beginning their training on those dates. Now, this process, what we're talking about tonight, is taking a little longer than we expected, so we may not be able to get somebody hired that can start on November 2nd exactly, but anything that we do to increase the start, or get them on the road sooner, will help us to save money. Because once Officer Silva retires, we will have a gap in the day shift that will create some overtime. I can't give you a good estimate on that because it won't create overtime 4 days a week, but it will make the shift low enough that when somebody takes a day off, we'll have to fill with overtime. So there's no way for me to tell you exactly how much we're going to save, but that by spending this money, we will, in effect, save some overtime. By bringing the person who's starting on January 1st on sooner and getting them ready to go on January 1st means that they'll be part of staffing on January 1st. And again, that will help us to reduce overtime. The more officers we have on the shift, the less we have to replace when somebody takes something off. The letter that I provided you and the spreadsheet is a look at what it would cost depending on the type of officer and the date we hire them. I've recommended that we move forward with $19,000 because that's the highest cost we would need. I can go through the numbers that are on the sheet if that's helpful for you, but at the end of the day, what we're using is the money that comes from, that's remaining in our fiscal budget for Officer Silva's salary, and the money that we have budgeted starting January 1st for the new officer. So those numbers take that into account, and they also take into account what we would need to put somebody of average. Again, it can't be perfect because I won't know until we hire those people what level of experience they have, but well, what level of college education they have. But it's a very good estimate of what we would need to move this forward a little sooner. And I think it's a very valuable use of revenue replacement funds so that we can try to save money in the overtime budget for this fiscal year. I think that's the briefest, simplest way I can explain it. Does anybody have any questions or anything I could expand upon?
Mr. Townsend?
Motion to approve this project with a cap of $19,000.
Second.
Motion, we have a second. Any other questions, issues, or concerns?
I just have one question. So it's very possible this might be less than $19,000.
Yes.
for all this.
At this point, it most likely will be. Although, if we've got the 19,000 allocated, my suggestion would be maybe we move that second hire for the January 1st one even sooner, because like I said, the sooner we get the people on the road, the better the savings.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jones?
So should we have a proviso in there in case that amount needs to be increased?
I believe the 19,000 is going to get us where we need to be,
Okay.
based on the numbers that we have available right now. So thank you for that suggestion, but I think we will be good.
A couple questions. But we don't know right now if that'll be a lateral transfer or someone has to go through the academy, correct?
Well, we know it won't be somebody who has to go to the academy because we can't get somebody into the academy until February, which is of no use to us right now at all. This is a historical problem we've had in Carver. We kind of kick the can, so to speak. We wait till somebody retires before we start the process to replace them, and then that's what's one of the biggest cost factors of that is it takes at least 9 months, usually about a year, to get somebody if we were going to put them through the academy. So for us to put somebody through the academy for these 2 slots, we wouldn't see them on the road until next August at the soonest. So we don't have any option to go to the academy to try to fill them within this fiscal year. We have to go with the lateral transfer, and we're moving forward on that. We have 22 applicants that we're screening right now that would be lateral transfers. We've been very, very fortunate. We're using a new system called Get Badge to bring people in to get their resumes and their cover letters, and it's opened up a lot of avenues. And so we're looking to, as of today, we're looking at 22 people that completed the process, the application process on that as a lateral transfer.
And if, getting back to the January 1, first of all, spending this money now doesn't affect our budget because we already got these people programmed and plugged into the fiscal 25 budget.
That's correct. So they're in this fiscal budget. We're using the money that's in the current fiscal budget, and as we start fiscal 26, these 2 positions will be budgeted into that fiscal 26 budget, and that will depend on how many years of experience they have, what they have for college education, and where they'll fall at.
And will that give you 19 officers in total?
Yes, but that includes myself and the deputy and all of our officers.
Okay. And one last question. If you were going along the current path that you had, where you had this position plugged in for January 1, and there was no lateral transfer, and there was somebody out of the academy, January 1, whatever, is it true in saying that, maybe it's on here, but I printed out too small. How long does it take to go to the academy? Is it before
It's 6 months in the academy,
Okay.
and then the 3 months of field training after that.
So in theory, you'd be 9 months really in overtime because you're...
Yes.
If you were to get a new person in January 1,
Yes.
it'd be 9 months of overtime.
Right. If we started January 1 on the hiring process, first of all, the academy doesn't start till February 1, so we'd lose a month, and then we would have 9 months on top of that.
Got it.
Before they were ready to go, before they could be ready to go and work on the street by themselves.
Okay.
And I should back up a little bit to explain the difference between the 7 months and the 7 weeks and the 13 weeks. A lateral transfer, by term, is a police officer who's completed the academy, is post-certified, and has at least 1 year experience on the job they're coming from. A different version of that is somebody who's completed the academy, is post-certified, but doesn't have that 1 year, and that's the difference between the 7 weeks and the 13 weeks. They're both lateral transfers, but one has more experience on the road. And it could be more than a year, it could be 2 or 3, 5 years, but that person we've agreed with the union to have a little bit less field training time because really we'll just need to get them to know the town and bring them up to speed on our forms and how we do things.
Okay, thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions, issues, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? 0. Okay, 5-0 to approve.
Thank you very much. My second one, another project that's come up that I think would be a value use of these funds is it's on a computer program, but it's a service that we can subscribe to for our officers that helps them to make better real-time decisions out in the field. As a police officer, I've always had my law books in the cruiser with me so that I can review them if need be, go back to the cruiser, look it up, find the answer to a question, decide if you can make an arrest, if you have the problem, if you can cite somebody, what decisions you're going to make in real time. I can tell you that trying to memorize all the laws and keep all that in your head and make decisions in the middle of an emergency, sometimes human beings can fail on that because they don't have the information. And even having those books back in your cruiser doesn't mean you always have the time to go back there and research that. We, like many departments, have had people make mistakes over the years and had people make arrests when they really should have just summoned them to court. And knock on wood, we haven't incurred liability from that, but we could. So this current system is a modern app that goes on our phones and on our laptops that allows an officer to enter a question in, such as, is disturbing the peace arrestable in the past? What it's really good at is, instead of searching Google or the internet and coming up with an answer that may or may not apply to the state of Massachusetts, it's a database that we control. It has the 2 most current law books that we use in Massachusetts, Justin Hanrahan's and John Sheff's books, up to date in it. It has all of our policy and procedures in it. It has anything that we decide we want to put in it. It could have the emergency plan for King Richard's Fair in it. It could have the contract in it. It could have anything in it. But they can ask questions of this, and in real time, very fast, get the information they need to their phone. The City of Cambridge, the Town of Plymouth, and many other departments have already signed on with this. And this has come up this year. We tested it. I was actually amazed at how often our officers used it, because some people are technology averse, but we have a good crowd that's interested in moving forward and learning things. And this system, this process, gives them the ability to do it right there on the scene and make a quality decision, helping us to reduce liability. In addition, this system is, within the next couple of months, we'll be developing so that we can also store all of our policy and procedures in there, not just for them to be searchable, but so that they can keep track that people have read them and they've signed off on them. We currently have a different software system that does that we spend about $3,500 a year on. So this system moving forward is we'd need $4,500 this year to do it, and it would be continuing. But by next year, it will be replacing something that's in our budget currently. Why do I not want to wait? Well, first of all, we have this money to use, and I think it's a very valuable use of it. And if I hadn't seen with my own eyes how often our officers use it to revert to questions, then I would tell you we would wait and budget it for next year. But I think it makes a lot of sense for us to put this forward, because it gives them real-time information to deal with real-time situations. And it's a lot better than having to go back to your cruiser to try to pick up a book and find out what to do. It does everything as far as giving people answers to things, including not our department, but medical procedures on what to do with a heart attack. Because we learn it, we go over it every year. And I can tell you, when the first time you have to do CPR, you have to do some of those things, you still have questions. And this can be right on your phone, so they can hear it and see it in real time. I think there's a lot of value to it. And again, I was asked to make suggestions on what we would spend the money on, so this is just another project I would suggest.
All right, Mr. Ryan.
Did you mention there's an annual fee, or do you have to pay $4,500 a year, or is it less?
Yes, right now the fee is $225 per officer, which is per year. But as I mentioned, so this one's $4,500. We'll be replacing a system next year that we paid $3,500 for this year. I can't get the money back this year. But by next year, this will be absorbed into our budget with only a $1,000 increase.
Okay, so you would expect a $1,000 increase in your budget to support?
Yes,
okay, thank
moving
you.
forward, yep.
But I'm sorry, it's a question. You're using something that, I was under the impression that you either had your law books to look at, or you had this new software.
Right, and so I was
You've got a software already?
No, so two different things. So policies and procedures for accreditation are in a set of software. That software, when we send them out, it shows that they read it and they signed off on it. That's what it does. It's not searchable, it's just there. You can look it up on the computer, but it's there. This is going to take those policies and procedures and put them into this system, so it's searchable using this service. And in the future, it's going to also have the ability to cite, so they can have an electronic signature so when they receive the policies. So it's going to replace this software that doesn't do as much with a software that does both, is my best explanation of that.
Got it.
Okay.
All right, anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the $4,500 request from Chief Duford.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions, issues, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? I guess I should ask a question beforehand. Let's just say we present this and it gets denied by Plymouth County. Then it's
So
federal money?
I'll go through that in the update.
All right.
So yeah, I don't have that answer, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
But thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
working
Thank
on the
you.
answer.
Have a good night.
Two. All right, next item. The update, American Rescue Plan ARPA update.
Okay, so pretty much this update has not changed since last time, with the exception of those 2 projects that you just approved. All the projects you approved at the last meeting are all rolled into this total, as well as those 2 new projects you can see under current project requests for $23,500. As far as the breakdown of those numbers, the project's pending approval has increased because since the last time, some of those projects have been completed, the invoices are received, and they've been submitted into the portal waiting for Plymouth County to approve. The projects in process, we're going to go over in detail, and the current project requests will talk about the options for payment for those. So for Plymouth County, again, we've had this total ongoing for quite some time. The $763,481.98 has been completed and reimbursed. Plymouth County recently approved that due to our 2023 annual town meeting article number 8, that $102,583.48 can go back into this account for the town to spend. So for the projects pending Plymouth County approval, these are the ones that have been completed, submitted, awaiting Plymouth County review. Total $558,658. I think the ones since last time are the E911 compliance, the EMS tablet and accessories, smartboard and cart, and I think the EOC training room. We were just waiting for the invoice, so that has all been completed and submitted. The projects that are in process. So for these projects, the first project we have is the Middleborough meter pit. So obviously we can't submit any invoices till work is done. The contract has been approved with Middleborough and the contractor. So what we're going to do is just continue to communicate with Middleborough, and as work is done and they're receiving invoices, ask them to send them to us and we can submit those. So since this is water, it's not reimbursement, it's kind of on the fast track to auto-approve. So once we submit that to Plymouth County, the process is much quicker for them to say, yes, this can go through. The next project, oh, sorry about that, is the Carver Middle High School mechanical system for better air quality. There was concerns about the waiting time on this and the delays. The town had tried to lower the cost by getting the equipment ourselves, and I think, I'm not sure if Dave explained this last time or if I explained it, that the vendor actually won't allow that they have to get everything all together. So that did delay the process. We met with Plymouth County and asked for an extension on this one, knowing that we'll go out to bid and that the work can't be done while the kids are in school. We can try to see if it can be done nights and weekends. That could increase the cost. So they did approve an extension of this because we don't want that money taken away from us. The Council on Aging kitchen equipment, we were waiting for one more item to be done. So that item was delivered, and we're processing the invoice now. The Municipal Well Corrosion Project. This is another one that they were working on the RFP for this. So that bid opening is September 10th. and we're hoping to quickly contract that and get moving on that project as well. The purchase of the electric vehicle for the health agent has been delivered, and again, another invoice that we're processing, so we're hoping that that invoice will be done hopefully by next week, in next week's bills. However, the electric vehicle for assessing and inspections, the dealership is still awaiting delivery. That was our update as of today. The dealership has no other update other than that. And this is something that will most likely have to go through federal funds anyway. We can try to submit it through Plymouth County once that vehicle arrives. The decommissioning of the 22 private wells, we were originally anticipating that to be done at the end of August. Now, the anticipated end date is mid to late September. We have requested through the vendor to invoice us for any work completed so that we can get that submitted and get that money spent. And again, that is water, so that should be fast-tracked once we submit it through the Plymouth County portal. As Glenn mentioned earlier, the COA deck, the bid is advertised for that. The bid opening is September 12th, and again, we're hoping to quickly contract that and get that moving along. The delays on that were originally they were looking at one location, then they moved to the location, then we were looking for an architect, and it was just too small of a project, and we finally found someone to take that on, to do the specs to get us out to bid. The Central Fire Station HVAC condenser repair is complete, so we're in the process of getting the invoice from the vendor. Again, that's something we're hoping to get in as soon as possible and get that in process in the next week or two to get that completed. Municipal well booster pump. This part is ordered and we're waiting delivery of the part so it can be installed. We do not have an ETA on that part as of today. The municipal well generator repair, that was out to bid. The bid has been awarded. And we're just awaiting the installation date. The EMS remote patient monitoring, that invoice is being processed this week, so that should go to Plymouth County by next week for their approval. And same thing with the police message signs. That same thing, the invoice is being processed by accounting, so we're hoping that will get to the Plymouth County portal next week as well. For the new projects, the funding of the new hires to start the training for $19,000, it is highly likely that that will have to go to revenue replacement. It's just another portion of the Plymouth County funds where you don't need as much information to meet all of their criteria. And the database to assist officers during an arrest, it is likely that could be moved under the federal funding as well. And the federal funding has not changed since last time. These are the same projects as last time. The total is the same. There's no change there. Does anyone have any questions?
We had a couple. On the electric vehicles, are they considered to be take-home vehicles, or do they stay here at Town Hall? And it might be sounding kind of silly, not really. You know, someone drives to Town Hall to get their vehicle if they have to go out and do visits of some sort. I guess, are they take-home vehicles or are they not?
No, not take-home vehicles.
Not take-home.
So they'd have to be charged too. We're going to have a charging station, I would assume.
So the town is in process of working with a company for a grant for the electric vehicle charging stations. That has been in process for quite some time. So we're basically awaiting those. But I do believe the town has a way to charge vehicles.
Yeah, I was going to say, O&M director has temporarily in place for them to be charged. But we wait for the formal stations to be.
Okay.
Real big extension cord.
Yeah.
Light to flicker, you know what's going on. All right. I think that's it. Do we have anything else on the agenda that I missed? I don't think so.
Good job, Elaine.
That was an excellent update, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next meeting, September 17th. Just so everyone's aware. I'd like to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, 0. Thank you, Area 58.